180. That was my neighbor's fasting blood sugar, after eating what his doctor confidently called a healthy vegetable dinner. The next morning, 240. One single vegetable caused that jump, and there's a very good chance it's sitting in your kitchen right now. Today, I'm exposing 7 vegetables that spike blood sugar faster than candy, ranked from bad to metabolically catastrophic. And the #1 vegetable on this list, it raises blood sugar higher than a glazed donut. Your doctor probably told you to eat more vegetables. What they didn't tell you is this. Type "I deserve the truth" in the comments if you believe people should know what's really happening inside their bodies. And if you believe health information should be free, not hidden behind confusion and profit, share this video with the seniors who need it most. Because the only people who won't comment or share are the ones who benefit from you staying uninformed. What I'm about to show you can help prevent medication increases, nerve damage, and years of unnecessary blood sugar spikes. Stay with me, because vegetable #1 isn't just shocking. There's a strong chance you ate it last night. Now let me show you what's really happening inside your body, the part nobody talks about. The dangerous lie: all vegetables are healthy. Here's the truth most people never hear. Not all vegetables behave the same once they enter your bloodstream. Some vegetables are loaded with starch that your body breaks down faster than table sugar. White potatoes are the most extreme example. In fact, a baked white potato can raise blood sugar higher than a glazed donut. Here's why. When you eat starchy vegetables, your digestive system converts them into glucose within 15 to 30 minutes. That glucose floods your bloodstream. Your pancreas panics and releases insulin to control the damage. But after age 60, your cells can be up to 70% less responsive to insulin. So the glucose doesn't get absorbed. It stays in your blood, damaging nerves, kidneys, eyes, blood vessels, and your heart. And here's the part that scares me the most. Doctors tell diabetics to eat more vegetables without explaining that starchy vegetables are linked to a higher risk of type 2 diabetes. Non-starchy vegetables protect you. Starchy vegetables do the opposite. Yet they're all lumped together as if spinach and potatoes have the same effect. They don't. You're told to eat less, move more, and count carbs. But you're never told that specific vegetables are sabotaging your blood sugar every single day. And this sabotage is completely avoidable once you know which vegetables are the problem. The glycemic index, the missing explanation. The glycemic index measures how fast food raises blood sugar. Low, under 55. Medium, 55 to 69. High, 70 and above. Most people assume vegetables are low glycemic. That assumption is dangerously wrong. Some vegetables rank higher than cake, soda, and desserts you've been avoiding for years. And when these vegetables are eaten, especially at night, blood sugar stays elevated for hours. That means inflammation, blood vessel damage, and worsening diabetes. But here's where things get critical. Not all starchy vegetables affect you the same way. Some are manageable with strict limits, some should be avoided, and a few will destroy blood sugar control no matter what you do. After months of reviewing clinical studies and glycemic data, I'm ranking 7 vegetables, from problematic to outright disastrous. Vegetable #7, corn. Corn is one of the most misunderstood foods in modern diets. It's listed as a vegetable. It's served as a side dish, and because it's yellow and comes from a plant, many people assume it's safe. But metabolically, corn behaves far closer to a grain than a vegetable. The blood sugar reality. 1 cup of cooked corn contains roughly 27 grams of carbohydrates, with 6 to 7 grams coming from natural sugars. Its glycemic index typically falls between 55 and 60, placing it squarely in the moderate to high range. That means corn converts to glucose quickly and efficiently, especially in people with insulin resistance. Why corn spikes so easily? Corn is rich in rapidly digestible starch. Once cooked, those starches break down fast, flooding the bloodstream with glucose. Unlike fibrous vegetables, corn doesn't significantly slow absorption. And there's another issue most people never consider. Corn lacks the fat and protein needed to buffer its glucose impact. So blood sugar rises fast and drops hard. The portion problem. Corn is rarely eaten in small amounts. It's commonly served by the cup, eaten straight off the cob, mixed into rice, tortillas, or soups. A single corn on the cob can contain 30 to 35 grams of carbs on its own. That's the carb equivalent of multiple slices of bread served under the label vegetable. Processed corn is even worse. Corn often shows up as cornmeal, tortillas, cornflakes, or popcorn. Each processing step removes fiber and accelerates glucose release. For people managing diabetes, these forms of corn can cause sharp, rapid spikes that are hard to control. Final verdict. Corn is high in starch, moderately to highly glycemic, and frequently misclassified. Score: 4 out of 10. Vegetable by name, grain by effect. If you eat corn, treat it like a starch, not a vegetable. Limit to quarter cup or half a cob. Never pair with other carb-heavy foods. Balance with protein and fat. Corn isn't inherently bad, but calling it a vegetable creates false confidence. And with blood sugar, false confidence is the real danger.
Vegetable number 6, green peas. Green peas are often assumed to be harmless. After all, they're green. They're recommended in meal plans, added to balanced dishes, and rarely questioned. But when it comes to blood sugar, green peas aren't as innocent as they look. The carb content people overlook. 1 cup of cooked green peas contains about 21 grams of carbohydrates, along with 7 to 8 grams of natural sugar. Compared to leafy greens, that's a significant carb load. Their glycemic index usually falls in the upper 40s to low 50s, which sounds reasonable, until you consider how peas are eaten. Portion size is the real problem. Very few people eat peas by the spoonful. They're commonly mixed into rice or fried rice, added to pasta dishes, or stirred into stews and casseroles. That means peas are often eaten on top of other starches, not instead of them. So instead of a modest glucose rise, blood sugar surges. Fiber helps a little, but not enough to cancel out the total carbohydrate load. Why peas spike in real life? Green peas contain both starch and sugar. Once cooked, their sugars are absorbed quickly, while their starches continue releasing glucose over time. This creates a double wave effect, an early rise from sugar and a prolonged elevation from starch. For people with diabetes or insulin resistance, that can mean blood sugar staying high far longer than expected. The healthy side dish trap. Peas are often treated as a free vegetable. They're added generously because they're perceived as nutritious and light. But nutritionally, peas behave closer to a legume carb hybrid than a low glycemic vegetable. That's why many people see unexplained glucose rises after meals that include peas, even when everything else seems diabetes-friendly. Final verdict. Green peas. Moderately glycemic, easy to overconsume, problematic when combined with other carbs. Score: 5 out of 10. Manageable, but misleading. If you eat green peas, limit to 1/4 cup per meal. Never combine with rice, pasta, or bread. Pair with protein and non-starchy vegetables. Green peas aren't a disaster, but they're also not a free pass. When blood sugar control matters, green alone isn't enough. Vegetable number 5, butternut squash. Butternut squash is often seen as a health food. It's colorful, comforting, and packed with vitamins. And yes, nutritionally, it has value. But when it comes to blood sugar control, butternut squash comes with a problem that's easy to overlook: the carb load behind the sweet taste. 1 cup of cooked butternut squash contains roughly 22 grams of carbohydrates, including natural sugars that give it its sweet flavor. Its glycemic index typically sits in the low to mid-50s, which doesn't sound alarming, until you look at how it's actually eaten. Butternut squash is rarely served in small portions. Most butternut squash is roasted until soft and sweet, mashed, or pureed into soups. All of these methods break down the plant structure, making the starch and sugars easier and faster to absorb. Once pureed or overcooked, the glycemic load increases significantly. A single bowl of butternut squash soup can contain 2 to 3 cups of squash. That's 44 to 66 grams of carbohydrates in one sitting. For someone managing diabetes, that's not a side dish. That's a blood sugar spike waiting to happen. Why it sneaks up on people. Butternut squash doesn't feel like a carb. It's served as a vegetable. It's recommended in healthy recipes, so people don't count it. They pile it on their plate thinking it's harmless. But metabolically, your body treats butternut squash much closer to a starch than to a leafy green. Who should be most careful? For people with insulin resistance, prediabetes, or type 2 diabetes, large portions cause prolonged glucose elevation. Evening consumption worsens spikes, and pairing with other starches compounds the effect. This is especially problematic at dinner when insulin sensitivity is already lower. Final verdict: butternut squash is nutrient-rich, moderately glycemic, dangerous in large servings. Score: 5.5 out of 10. Portion sensitive. If you choose to eat butternut squash, limit to 1/2 cup maximum. Keep it firm, not overcooked. Avoid purees and large bowls of soup. Always pair with protein and fat. Butternut squash isn't the worst vegetable on this list, but it's far from a free food. With blood sugar, how much and how you prepare it matters just as much as what it is. Vegetable number 4, beets. Beets are often promoted as a superfood. They're praised for circulation, endurance, and heart health. But there's a side to beets that almost never gets mentioned: their impact on blood sugar. Beets are naturally high in sugar for a vegetable. That sugar doesn't disappear just because the food is natural. The sugar problem most people miss. 1 cup of cooked beets contains roughly 17 grams of carbohydrates, with 13 to 14 grams coming directly from sugar. That's an unusually high sugar load for something served as a vegetable. Their glycemic index sits around 60 to 65, placing them in the medium to high range. For people with diabetes or insulin resistance, that's enough to cause noticeable blood sugar spikes. Why beets spike faster than expected? The sugar in beets is mostly sucrose, which breaks down quickly into glucose and fructose. Once cooked, the cell walls soften, making that sugar even more accessible. This often results in rapid absorption, glucose increases within 45 to 60 minutes, and prolonged elevation afterward. For people with diabetes or insulin resistance, that can mean blood sugar staying high far longer than expected. The superfood trap. Beets are marketed as heart-healthy and performance-enhancing. That leads many people to assume they can eat unlimited amounts. But antioxidants and nitrates do not cancel out sugar. Your blood sugar responds to chemistry, not marketing. For people managing diabetes, frequent beet consumption can quietly sabotage glucose control. Final verdict: beets are high in natural sugar, moderately to highly glycemic, easy to overconsume. Score: 6.5 out of 10. Healthy image, hidden cost. If you eat beets, limit to 1/4 cup of cooked beets. Never drink beet juice, and always pair with protein and fat. Beets can support circulation, but for blood sugar control, they require strict boundaries. Because natural does not mean neutral when it comes to glucose. Vegetable number 3, sweet potatoes. This is where a lot of people get uncomfortable. Sweet potatoes have a great reputation. They're praised by nutritionists, recommended in diabetes articles, and often labeled the healthy alternative to white potatoes. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Better than white potatoes does not mean safe for blood sugar. Sweet potatoes are still a starchy root vegetable, and for many people with diabetes or insulin resistance, they still cause meaningful glucose spikes.
The numbers most people ignore. One medium sweet potato contains about 26 to 27 grams of carbohydrates, along with 5 to 6 grams of natural sugar. Their glycemic index varies wildly, from the mid-40s to well over 90, depending on the variety and how they're prepared. Here's an important detail few people know. Orange-fleshed sweet potatoes, the most popular kind, tend to spike blood sugar more aggressively. White and purple varieties usually have a lower impact. But most people don't choose varieties strategically. They eat whatever's available, and usually in large portions. Cooking turns them into a problem. Sweet potatoes are rarely eaten raw or firm. They're usually baked until soft, mashed, or roasted until caramelized. All of these methods break down the starch structure, making glucose absorption faster. Once cooked, sweet potatoes digest far more quickly than people expect. For someone with insulin resistance, that means noticeable post-meal glucose rises, longer time spent above target blood sugar, and greater insulin demand. And here's the trap: the healthy topping illusion. Most sweet potatoes aren't eaten plain. They're paired with honey, brown sugar, maple syrup, marshmallows, sweet glazes. Each addition compounds the blood sugar spike. Even without toppings, a large baked sweet potato can deliver 40 to 50 grams of carbohydrates, the equivalent of several slices of bread. That's enough to push blood sugar well into dangerous territory for many people. What research and real life show. Studies comparing post-meal glucose responses consistently find that sweet potatoes raise blood sugar less than white potatoes, but still significantly in people with diabetes. That distinction matters. Lower spike does not mean no spike. For older adults with reduced insulin sensitivity, even moderate rises can contribute to inflammation and long-term complications. Final verdict? Sweet potatoes are nutritionally dense, better than white potatoes, still problematic for blood sugar control. Score: 7.5, deceptively healthy. If you choose to eat sweet potatoes, choose smaller portions, limit to 1/4 of a medium potato, avoid sweet toppings, and always pair with protein and fat. Sweet potatoes aren't villains, but they're also not the free, harmless food they're marketed to be. When it comes to blood sugar, reputation doesn't matter. Physiology does. Vegetable number 2, parsnips. This is one of the most dangerous vegetables because almost no one warns you about it. Parsnips don't look threatening. They resemble pale carrots. They show up in soups, stews, and healthy roasted vegetable dishes. And that's exactly why they're a problem. Parsnips have a glycemic index that can reach the high 90s, often around 97. That's higher than white bread, higher than donuts, and higher than many desserts. For something served as a vegetable, that should raise serious red flags. 1 cup of cooked parsnips contains roughly 27 grams of carbohydrates, mostly as fast-digesting starch and natural sugar. But again, the real issue isn't just the number, it's the speed. Why parsnips spike so fast? Parsnips are a root vegetable dominated by starch. When they're cooked, especially boiled, roasted, or mashed, their structure breaks down quickly. That breakdown allows digestive enzymes to convert starch into glucose almost immediately. For people with insulin resistance or diabetes, this leads to rapid glucose absorption, sharp post-meal blood sugar spikes, and prolonged elevation afterward. Many people notice unexplained glucose spikes after meals containing parsnips without realizing they're the cause. Why they're especially dangerous. Here's what makes parsnips more problematic than many other starchy vegetables. They're rarely listed as high risk. They're often included in healthy recipes. They're commonly combined with other carbs, and they're typically cooked until very soft. Roasting parsnips until caramelized doesn't make them healthier. It concentrates their sugars. Adding them to soups or purees breaks their structure even further, making glucose absorption even faster. So people think they're eating well, while their blood sugar tells a very different story. No real upside for diabetics. Unlike leafy greens or cruciferous vegetables, Parsnips don't offer unique benefits that justify their glycemic impact. That's why parsnips aren't just limited. For most people with diabetes, they're simply not worth it. Final verdict? Parsnips are extremely high glycemic, rapidly digested, and largely overlooked as a risk. Score 8.5, a hidden blood sugar danger. If you have diabetes, prediabetes, or insulin resistance, avoid parsnips entirely. Or, if consumed, keep portions under a quarter cup, always with protein and fat. They may look harmless, but metabolically, parsnips behave closer to refined carbs than vegetables, and that's why they deserve their place near the top of this list.
Vegetable number 1. White potatoes, the worst for blood sugar. This is the most damaging vegetable for blood sugar control, white potatoes. Especially russet potatoes, but all white varieties apply. Here's the truth most people never hear. Once cooked, white potatoes act more like sugar than a vegetable. Depending on how they're prepared, white potatoes can raise blood sugar higher than a glazed donut. The numbers explain why. White potatoes often score between 85 and 111 on the glycemic index. For reference, pure glucose is 100. That means some potato dishes spike blood sugar faster than straight sugar. One medium-baked russet potato contains about 37 grams of carbohydrates, but the real danger isn't just the carb count, it's how fast those carbs enter your bloodstream. Why potatoes spike so aggressively? White potatoes are almost pure starch, specifically amylopectin, the fastest digesting form of starch. Cooking causes this starch to gelatinize, making it extremely easy for digestive enzymes to break it down. Here's what typically happens. 15 minutes, glucose begins entering the bloodstream. 30 minutes, blood sugar rises sharply. 60 to 90 minutes, peak blood sugar. 2 to 3 hours, prolonged elevation and tissue damage. For many people with diabetes, a single potato can push readings into the 200s or higher. The insulin problem after 60. That rapid glucose surge forces the pancreas to release large amounts of insulin. But with age, cells become far less responsive to insulin, so glucose stays in the bloodstream longer, damaging blood vessels, nerves, kidneys, and eyes. And the damage doesn't stop there. The crash that follows. After the spike, insulin often overshoots, dropping blood sugar too low. This triggers intense hunger, sugar cravings, fatigue, and brain fog. That's how potatoes create a blood sugar roller coaster: spike, crash, crave, repeat. Over time, this cycle worsens insulin resistance and accelerates diabetic complications. Preparation makes it worse. Common potato dishes are especially harmful. Baked potatoes, mashed potatoes, often GI over 108, fries and chips, potato soup. Mashed potatoes in particular can spike blood sugar faster than candy. What about cooling potatoes? Cooling cooked potatoes creates resistant starch, which can reduce glucose spikes by 25 to 40%. Helpful, but not a solution. The total carb load remains high, and portions still matter. Final verdict. White potatoes are extremely high glycemic, rapidly absorbed, insulin intensive. Score 10 out of 10, maximum blood sugar impact. If you have diabetes or insulin resistance, avoid white potatoes completely or use the cook, cool, reheat method only in very small portions, always with protein and fat. Your blood sugar responds to chemistry, not comfort food. How to use this information. Eliminate white potatoes. Severely limit parsnips, beets, and sweet potatoes. Treat corn, peas, and squash as carbs, not free vegetables. Always pair starch with protein and fat. Eat starch last, never first. Avoid starchy vegetables at night. Within days, energy stabilizes. Within weeks, fasting glucose improves. This isn't fear, it's physiology. And if you believe people deserve real health information, not confusion, share this video. Those who profit from misunderstanding won't.